Hello, and welcome back to the Grunt Perspective. And in this video, we're going to be talking about infantryman food. Um, I know this kind of seems like it doesn't need to be spoken about, like you just eat, right? But unfortunately, it's not that simple. The number one cause of heat and cold injuries is not being properly fed and hydrated. And most people are good at the hydrating part, but a lot of people are really not good at the properly feeding yourself part. So what I do when I choose food that I want to eat in the field is I have this little triangle here, right? And ideally, the perfect food for the field would exist somewhere in the center. On the top, we have the caloric value, and then we have the ease of eating and cooking and preparing and things like that. And then the ever important weight of all this stuff. So, whenever I'm trying to choose a food, I'm going to be looking for super dense caloric value, right? I'm looking for things high in the big three, your fats, carbs, and proteins. Those big three are the things that are going to give you the most calories, most bang for your buck. And that is really what you need to focus on when you go to the field. Like all of your micronutrients and things like that, like they're important, yes, but if you don't have them, your body can kind of go without them for a while before real problems start to set in. But having at least your fats, carbs, and your proteins covered is going to give you a lot of calories, and a lot of calories is what you need. Doing infantry work, right, you're expending way more calories than you would in like a day-to-day. I don't know if this is like accurate, but what it seems like, if a person needs about 2,000 calories a day to maintain their body weight and be healthy, right? When they're actively patrolling, staying up all night, carrying a heavy rucksack and things like that, like you can count on that number being almost doubled. And this is through years of experience and being hungry and tired and feeling like shit in the field. But, you know, whenever you're trying to choose a food, I would highly advise that you look to this before you decide that that food is going to be worth carrying or worth not carrying. And again, field food, calories, ever important, ease of eating, and then the ever important weight. So with that kind of knocked out of the way here, I'm going to start to go through some good and bad examples of what you should be eating in the field. So kicking it off first with the ever old faithful MRE, right? The Mr. E, meals ready to eat. So MREs, you know, they're fine. They're really not that bad. But the thing that I want to hit with MREs is field stripping. And field stripping is the process or the practice of opening up that MRE prior to you going out to the field with it and taking out a lot of the stuff that you know you're not going to eat. Now, you could be on two sides of the spectrum here. You could be on the, you know, I'm going to eat all of it, so what's the point in opening it up? And then the more common side of the fence that I see people on is they take damn near everything out of that MRE, and then, you know, they don't really have a whole lot to eat. And both sides of the fence are kind of wrong. So I'll go through. This is I don't even know what kind of MRE that this is, but I'll go through what I usually keep inside mine. I usually keep the heaters. I almost never use them, right? But being in a colder environment, they work like hot hands. And if you have the time and the ability to do so, having a hot meal is always nice. So I usually keep the heaters, even though probably about 50% of the time they work. I'm gonna take this and move this off to the side here. I got some nut raisin mix here. This is again high high in calories, 360 calories inside this package. And that's definitely something that you're going to want to keep in there, even if you don't necessarily like the taste of it, right? Now I got, what do I got here? Beef taco filling. Very good, right? And then the Santa Fe rice and beans, okay? If you've ever eaten this before, you know that this tastes like absolute shit, right? But I keep it inside here sheerly based off of the caloric value that it's going to give me. I've participated in training before where we were more or less starved for 2 weeks, and we were given 6 MREs for those 2 weeks, and then the rest of the food that we had to acquire on our own. And when I was about halfway through that, I had really wished that I had kept my Santa Fe fucking rice and beans inside there. Tortillas, good source of carbohydrates there. And then cheese spread, of course. And of course, Tabasco sauce. Okay, so what I'm trying to get at here with MREs is if you're going to field strip them, which you probably should, just don't go overboard. Don't take out stuff that has really good caloric value, even if it's not necessarily your favorite thing to eat in the world. Like, what is it? The toasted corn kernels, I think they're called. I fucking hate those things, right? But I keep them in there because it's not really about the flavor. It's about the fuel, right? If you properly fuel your body, then you're going to be able to actually keep doing this infantry stuff and not, die on day 3 because you're feeling super tired. Now, so obviously the MRE is like the standard, right? If I had to put the MRE somewhere here, I would say it does pretty well on calories. It's pretty easy to eat, but it is a little bit on the heavy side. So if I were to mark that on this graph here, it would probably be somewhere over here in this area, right? So depending on what you're doing and depending on what other stuff you have inside of your rucksack, an MRE maybe isn't the way to go for you, or multiple MREs might not be the way to go for you. So that's going to bring us to Mountain House meals. Mountain House meals, of course, I got a chili mac, right? Mountain House meals, they're good. They taste fine. This one has 460 calories per serving here, but there's a couple drawbacks to Mountain House meals, right? Well, I guess before I talk about the drawback, I should talk about the strengths. One, they're extremely lightweight. They're very lightweight compared to a MRE because it's all dehydrated. It's just the food. You're not carrying around the other water that's already been placed, inside the food to keep it hydrated like MREs are. Now, it's a double side of the coin though, because you have to now add water to this, preferably hot water. You have to now add hot water to this to make this like actual food. Obviously, you can eat the whole thing dry, but that's pretty fucking gnarly. So what are we getting with that? We're wasting some water, as well as now my process to actually make my food involves heating up water. Involves the jet boil, right? So maybe if you really need to carry a lot, like maybe you're doing very long sustained operations away from friendly lines, and you know that your pack's going to be full of things like ammunition and comm batteries and things like that, maybe the Mountain House meal is going to be the way to go for you. But for any normal scenario, I would say these are probably not the way to go. Probably not. And why is that? It's because of the ease of use thing, right? They do really well on calories and they do well on weight. They're very light, but the ease of use is not that good, right? Like you can't just pull this out and eat it while you're on patrol. Like I can tear a corner off of a main meal bag and I can toothpaste that into my mouth. That's not something that I can do with a Mountain House meal. So something to think about there. Now, with the jet boil, that has to go with the Mountain House meal. Some considerations about the jet boil, right? Every infantryman has a jet boil. I bought this when I was a young Lance Corporal. And to be honest, I've barely ever used it for a couple of reasons. One, additional weight. I got to carry fuel and things like that for the jet boil. They're kind of loud, and the signature, right? They're noisy, and they have that flame signature. And I know that there's all kinds of shields and attachments that you can get for them to hide that flame and things like that. But, you know, in reality, like if I just got done patrolling for several hours and I had the choice to, am I going to pull out my jet boil, light it, heat up water, make a mountain house meal, or am I just going to tear the corner off of a main meal and put that into my mouth and then go to sleep? What would you do, right? And I'll tell you what I would do is I'm gonna eat the MRE, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that MREs are the end all be all, but I'm just saying that there's advantages and drawbacks to a lot of this kind of stuff. So we'll put those off to the side now. And we'll talk about canned foods. Good old ravioli. I'm sure that if you're in the military, you know at least one guy that just carries out like 8 cans of ravioli with him out to the field. And while it is pretty easy to eat, and they are pretty good on calories, each one of these cans has 410 calories. They are quite heavy, and they do make a huge fucking mess inside your pack, right? These cans are solid. Once all the food is out of these cans, then they're not going to get any smaller than this. And now I'm going to have to pack that out. And I'm probably going to have to bring some sort of garbage bag or something like that, because now I don't want to get ravioli all over the inside of my rucksack, because that's just gross, right? Then I'm going to have to deal with animals smelling my gear and getting into my gear. I knew a Marine who got his whole main pack drug away by wild boars because he had open cans of ravioli inside his pack, and they smelled it and they drug his pack away, ate all of his food, and then he had no food for the rest of those 4 days that we were out there. So just something to think about, right? Nothing inherently wrong with these, but, you know, good on calories. They're easy to eat, but they're very heavy, right? So that would rate them somewhere over here. Put those off to the side now. Now, every fucking Marine brings candy out with them to the field. And believe me, I know how good it tastes to eat some candy when you've been patrolling for hours and it's hot as fuck outside. I know, right? But the reality is this kind of food does almost nothing for you. It's all sugar, right? And there is something to be said about quick sugars, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this kind of food, if you're just crushing bags and bags of candies, like I know guys that bring out 2-pound, 3-pound bags of candy with them to the field, and they just eat candy the whole time. That's not good, right? That doesn't fuel your body well. So candy, if you want to bring candy, I would say you need to use it sparingly. Only use it for the quick sugars when you're doing long movements and things like that your body is going to need. But if you're just crushing candy in lieu of actual food, obviously that's not going to be very, very beneficial for your body, and you are going to be a heat casualty. And no one likes to get that silver bullet up their ass. So now, another popular one here, ramen. So ramen does pretty well on the ease of, or it does pretty well on the calories and on the weight part. 370 calories within this whole package, but it suffers from the same thing that the Mountain House meals do, is that you need a jet boil, right? And I know that you can put your ramen inside your hot beverage bag and you can heat it up like that, right? But even then, that's still a lot of work to do, right? So either you use the jet boil or you use the hot beverage bags, things like that. But like either way, they're not really something that you can eat in a very quick manner and just be done with. There is preparation that takes place. It's not just ready to eat as soon as you pull it out of your pack. That's kind of the thing, meal ready to eat, right? They're not ready to eat. You have to prepare them in some way or another. That being said, it is nice to eat something that isn't an MRE. So if you want to take some of these, then more power to you. A lot of guys like to add the tuna packets to them, heat them up. And that's by all means, that's fine to do on something like a range. You know, you're just going to be out there shooting all day. And then, you know, at the end of the day, you make some ramen and some tuna. Cool, right? But in like training or real life environment, like you better believe that I'm not going to be busting out a jet boil to make some ramen at the end of the day, right? It's just too much. It's too much signature. It's too loud. It's too bright, and on top of that, it's too much work. You know, I'm not going to want to do that when there's other things that I'm going to need to be doing, like pulling security and sleeping, right? You sleep when you can, you eat when you can, because whenever you want to sleep, you're not going to be able to, and whenever you want to eat, you're not going to be able to. While I've got the tuna, this is another, for whatever reason, this is a really popular field choice for guys, is packets of tuna. Now, these are very light, they're very easy to eat, but these things suck on calories. This whole packet has 70 calories inside of it. That is terrible, right? You need more than that. If you're going to combine it with the ramen, sure, but like I just talked about, that's not really a real thing. That's a at the range thing, at the end of the day thing, right? If you're doing patrol-based operations or you're actually doing operational stuff, the jet boil is not going to be a thing for you, right? Only in the coldest of environments. Like if there is snow on the ground, then I get the jet boil, right? I've used it before when it's cold, when I'm in the snow. It's nice to have. It is nice to have. So, you know, I've been bashing on the jet boil the whole time, but I will say the one situation where it really makes sense to have a jet boil is in that real cold environment. But yeah, ramen, not going to do it for you. Not going to do it for you. So the way that I normally eat when I'm in the field is I have about 1.5 to 2 MREs a day, and then I supplement that with snacks. So if I'm going to the field for, I don't know, 5 days, I'll take out probably 8 MREs and lots of snacks, lots of pogey bait, right? It's okay to bring pogey bait, right? Like don't let people who don't know better try to convince you that it's not okay to bring pogey bait. And I keep it all inside of one little bag, and I keep this bag on the outside of one of the pockets on my Alice pack, so I can pull it out quickly, get what I want to get, and I can put it back in there quickly. So now some good examples of snacks, right? Trail mix, super easy to eat on the go, good on calories, good on weight, all in all, a very good snack. Granola bars fall into that same category, right? Easy to eat, fast, and they do very well on weight. I usually keep just fuck tons of granola bars, like 20, 30 granola bars inside here, and I eat probably 5 to 10 of them a day. So if you're looking for snacks, I would say granola bars, trail mix, things like that. Stay away from candy. Stay away from all that shit that sucks. Right? Slim Jims are another good snack. These are a good example. They have lots of protein and they have lots of fat. And that is going to fuel your body well. And everyone loves a good fucking Slim Jim, right? Snap into a Slim Jim. So Slim Jims are another good example of things that you should be eating in the field, as well as things like cheese. If you can get some cheese that's, you know, not going to expire, and you can carry that inside of those like packets, you know, like the packets that have the Slim Jims and the cheese, that's going to do well for you because that's going to give you some protein as well. Now, getting into some other little bullshit. So I just talked about candy, but this is actually a good example of candy that you could bring. And this would be like the Cliff block shots or like the goos and things like that. Now these things are more than just candy, right? They obviously have calories, they have sugar, which is good because when like you're doing movements and things like that, your body is going to appreciate those quick sugars. They have a little bit of caffeine inside them as well. I use these on like speed marches and hikes and things like that, just to make sure that they keep the cramps at bay. But the best way to make sure that your body doesn't cramp is the prep work. Make sure that you're hydrated and properly fueled going into that. And then, once you start cramping, you're fucked, right? Like it's over. There's no way to come back from that. So these are good to keep the cramps away for as long as possible. But the best way to make sure that you're like ready for those field exercises and things like that is to make sure that you are constantly hydrating and fueling your body properly. I see a lot of guys who are like, I don't need food, I just drink water. You know that feeling that you get when you're in the field, you're super tired and you're super lethargic and you've been drinking water all day? It's because you're not eating. You need to eat, right? You need to eat. I know the feeling. Trust me, I've been there 100 times, but every once in a while, second lieutenants and first lieutenants are famous for this, right? They just fucking go out on every patrol. They don't eat anything all day. They just drink water. And then before the end of the first 2 days of the field op, they're getting fucking picked up in the high back because they're done. They're heat casing. They've pushed their body past the point of no return. And now they've got like rhabdo and shit like that, right? So you need to eat, sir. You're not going to look weak. You can eat. It's okay. Some other things that I use to keep myself going when I'm already in the field are things like liquid IVs and drip drops. I try to drink at least one of these a day, usually at the end of the day, so I can give it some time to get in my body while I'm sleeping and actually like do its work. These are always good. You should be pushing these as often as you can, right? Don't go overboard with it. You shouldn't be drinking it constantly, but I try to drink at least one of these a day. And you can see that these things are beat the fuck up because I've been carrying them for a long time. But every time I go to the field, I use these. I got some drip drops. I got some liquid IVs and things like that. Now, getting into the stuff that everyone loves. Caffeine. So if you don't know what these things are called strike forces, and you're supposed to add these to water. Every little packet of these has 180 milligrams of caffeine, right? So there's problems with caffeine. You drink a lot of caffeine, it's going to hurt your night vision. Same thing with nicotine. But I'd be a liar if I said that I don't use these when it's getting real late and I need to pull security, things like that. But having a little bit of caffeine is nice, especially if you're someone that drinks caffeine on the regular. You're going to get a caffeine headache in the field when you're not drinking caffeine. So even just one of those a day is going to be enough to keep that headache at bay. Now, that was kind of quick here, but as I said in the beginning, fueling yourself seems like there's not a lot to it, but really there's a lot to it. It takes experience and lots of time in the field to figure out like what you actually need in your body and how much food you actually need to operate. During that training event where I was starving myself or being starved by my instructors, I kind of realized that as long as I eat something every day and have plenty of water, then I'm not going to die. I'm not going to get to the point where I can't do what I need to do. But that's something that I ate. It needed to be something substantial. It needed to be a main meal. It needed to be a Slim Jim. It needed to be, pack of ramen or something like that. But like, you need to fuel yourself well, because like I said in the beginning, the number one thing that is going to cause heat and cold injuries is not eating. Everyone for the most part is good at the hydrating part of it. Everyone knows, we drink water, make sure that we're always hydrated and things like that. But guys, fucking 9 out of 10 times neglect to eat properly. You need to eat. You're not a machine. You need to eat. Okay, I'm talking to you, first lieutenant, second lieutenant. You need to eat. Okay. So to recap here, I went through some good examples. I went through some bad examples. But the next time that you're choosing food that you want to carry out with you, this is a very helpful tool that I've used for a while now. Calories ease of eating, and weight. You should be looking for food that lands you just about in the direct center there. If it's a little bit higher on the calories, cool. If you're willing to carry some extra weight, cool. And if you know that you're going to have time to do the jet boil and do the mountain house, cool, right? But operationally in real life, you're not going to have a lot of time to eat. Just like I said, you eat when you can, you sleep when you can. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope that this was helpful and informational, and I'll see you next time.